Let's talk about this with Derya Unutmaz. He's an immunologist at the Jackson Laboratory and joins us from Farmington, Connecticut. Thank you so much for your time. At one stage, India seemed to be doing quite well in trying to control this virus and had quite a low death rate. But what are the factors that have now led to what we're seeing as almost a disaster zone in that country?
Yeah, it's been rather puzzling for us as well. But I think it's a combination of several factors. First, I think they've gotten too confident, thinking that perhaps they reached the herd immunity or that the virus was under control. So the measures were just inadequate. I think the second, maybe a more important factor, is that the presence of these variant viruses that are definitely much more infectious right now. And in India, there is a virus that has so-called double mutation, which combines both the ability to spread faster as well as escape from antibodies. So it's the worst case scenario, similar to what's happening in Brazil, actually. So it's probably a combination of these situations, but the situation is very bad.
So, Doctor, in the last few weeks and most recently, the government has implemented stricter lockdowns and stricter restrictions. But is this going to be enough to try and contain the situation?
The problem is that, this virus has evolved during the past year. I mean, it's almost a slightly different virus because it has learned to spread in humans, better infect them. So the measures that were okay or sufficient maybe 6 months ago are no longer the case. You really need to increase those measures, even make them much more stricter. And we saw that example in England, actually. I mean, they were in terrible situation back in January, and they went into complete lockdown. But the most important thing they did was vaccination. They had a massive vaccination, and the cases came down from 50, 60,000 down to 1,000 now. So India has to do both much more stricter lockdowns, as well as greatly increased vaccination rates, which is not going to be easy.
Well, India at the moment has only vaccinated about 1.4% of its population, which is well over a billion people. And as you've said, it's so important to try to vaccinate people. But how long does that take in terms of trying to stop the spread of the virus? And most importantly at the moment, the mass hospitalizations, and considering the country is running out of essential medicine and even oxygen at this stage?
Absolutely. I think at this point, vaccination is not a short-term. It's not going to have a short-term effect, because you really need to vaccinate at least a third of the population to get to some level of herd immunity. It will be partial, but it will start to have an effect. And you have to consider that you only see the effect typically after the second dose of the vaccine, which takes at least a month and a half. So even if India were to vaccinate, 100 million people a day, this situation is not going to get any better for the next month or so. So they really need to do that, but they need the time. And unfortunately, right now, even hours matter because the country's healthcare system has just collapsed.
It's a really concerning situation happening in India. But great to talk to you, Dr. Derya Unutmaz. Thank you so much for your time.